As per our custom and tradition, on the last Sunday of the liturgical year, we celebrate the solemnity of Christ the King. For our reflection, the Church proposes two images of Christ's kingship: the supreme judge at the end of time and the shepherd. The two may seem at opposite ends of the Christological spectrum. In fact, they are much more closely connected than they actually appear. The first image presented in the first reading and the responsorial psalm is that of Christ as shepherd. It is among the most loved images in Christian tradition because it portrays care, concern, solace, and rest. The shepherd is an example of gentleness, solicitude, and dependable direction that leads to the right paths. It is an image of Christ that one welcomes readily because it is so assuring, eliciting trust and confidence. A shepherd king is an altogether agreeable proposition. The second image, one we find in the Gospel from Matthew 25, presents Christ as judge on final day. The setting is not the shepherd's verdant pastures or restful waters, but rather the time of reckoning or judgment day at the end time. Yet the image is not all judgment, reward, or punishment. One, in fact, could easily consider it the reverse side of the first image. It is because the criteria for judgment are the same ones we would associate with a concerned and loving shepherd, that is, care for the hungry, the thirsty, the injured, the sick, and concern for those who may have strayed or are lost. Today, the readings, the theme of reflection, and the Novena intention converge. Even though the Magnificat passage speaks only of the hungry being filled with good things, it may well include the other services that we offer those in need, those sick, in prison, thirsty, etc. Anyone belonging to the Vincentian family and to our Novena family would be familiar with these acts of charity. They are constant challenges waiting to be brought into concrete form. On the final day, a true Vincentian, as well as a devotee of Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal, would be judged not on the number of learned books we may have written, nor on the number of novenas we may have attended, still less on the number of sermons we may have preached, but rather on whether we have given food to the hungry, drink to the thirsty, welcome to a stranger, clothe to the naked, and care for the ill and imprisoned. This much is clear in the Gospel today, as it was clear in the life and teachings of Vincent de Paul. Anyone who has read about St. Vincent will be inspired by how literally he took Christ's words, "Whatever you did for one of the least of my brothers and sisters, you did it for me." In doing these acts of love, Vincent was motivated not by philanthropy or by simple human compassion, but by Christ's unmistakable assertion. He did it for no other reason than that he was doing it for Christ. As we are wont to say, he saw Christ in the poor and the poor in Christ. There was no camera trick here. It was as real and concrete as faith would see it. And yet Vincent de Paul was one person who always felt he had not done enough for the hungry, the homeless, the prisoners, the galley slaves of this world. In the movie Monsieur Vincent, there is a heart-rending scene where the great saint, after reviewing what he had done on behalf of those in need, sighed and with a trace of tear in his eyes said, "I have not done enough for the poor." This is the man who had organized confraternities of charity to assist the village poor, the one who inspired the ladies of the court to give of their time in order to care for the foundlings, and the same great man who almost single-handedly changed the face of the church of the 17th century. And still, he was convinced he had not done enough, or that he could have done more. We may be forgiven for thinking this as an exaggeration on the part of Vincent, but most assuredly, it was not false humility nor false modesty. You see, in evaluating his projects for the poor, Vincent's criteria or measuring stick were never his successes or accomplishments or the accolades he received from his admirers. In his mind, what we do for the poor can only be compared to what God has done and continues to do for them. No wonder he thought he always fell short. When we are able to see it the way Vincent de Paul saw it, then we would be able to do as he had done. In Juba, the capital city of South Sudan, our inter-congregational community consists of a Claretian priest, a sister of Notre Dame, and myself. Last September 27, the feast of St. Vincent, Sister Kathy read about the life of Vincent and was deeply touched. That same day, she found a sickly woman in a shack near our residence. We were told she had been placed there by the Ministry of Social Services. Sister Kathy was bothered by the woman's situation, who was not only sick, but also had to rely on others for daily food. Then and there, she contacted the Office of Social Services, inquired on the woman's family and relatives, and urged those responsible to bring the woman to the hospital. Sister Kathy did not stop until after a few days in the hospital and after daily follow-up, the woman was accompanied by a volunteer back to her home village. Like St. Vincent, Sister Kathy understood that Christ's kingship is best expressed in service of others. We devotees of Our Lady pray for a miracle. Actually, it is something that happens daily. When someone fills the hungry with good things, or gives a drink to the thirsty, or cares for the sick and the rejects of society, something happens. In face of it, all one can do is be quiet and be still, for it is the moment of God's visitation.